Welcome back to The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper. We're going to continue with our world lead now, the battle to defeat ISIS and the coalition's response to a heinous murder video showing a captured Jordanian pilot being burned alive. Now, Jordan's King Abdullah is promising an earth-shaking response. Joining me here in studio is Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, a senior member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator Graham, thanks so much for being here. You met with Jordan's King Abdullah yesterday. Broadly speaking, have you seen a reaction from the leaders of the Arab world that you want to see? Are they rising to the challenge of ISIS?
No. We were in Saudi Arabia a few days before the king died. They said, you can have our whole army, but you got to deal with Assad. We're willing to go in on the ground in Syria, but we got to deal with Assad. Turkey is saying we need a no-fly zone before we go in on the ground to deal with ISIL and Assad. So part of it is our fault. But at the end of the day, I think the Arab world, hopefully this will be a wake-up call. The King of Jordan is very committed to delivering a message to ISIL, but his capabilities are not there to defeat ISIL. It's not. He's running out of fuel and bombs. We're going to give him more bombs and more fuel, and they're going to put every fighter in the air they can. But at the end of the day, it's going to take a regional force beyond Jordan.
We learned that UAE, traditionally heralded in the United States as a reliable Arab ally, that the UAE has basically dropped out of the coalition against ISIS. Were you surprised when you heard that?
No Arab countries have flown since December the 24th in Syria except Jordan. We're flying 80% of the combat missions inside of Syria. Jordan's had about 600 hours of flight. All of the Arab coalition members combined have been less than 150 hours of combat time in Syria.
I don't mean to be glib about this, but my understanding is that the UAE stopped flying missions after the Jordanian pilot was captured because they were afraid of what might happen to their pilots. And the part that I don't want to be glib about is this is war. I mean, you can't guarantee anything for your pilots, so I don't really understand that as a reason for dropping out. Do you?
No, I don't. And I don't understand why we don't have a ground component being formed as I speak. An aerial campaign can affect ISIL on the margins. They're still gaining territory inside of Syria. But we don't have a component in Syria. We've got the Iraqi security forces eventually to work with. We have the Kurds and hopefully the Anbar Sunni tribes in western Anbar province inside of Iraq. But when it comes to Syria, the Free Syrian Army has been decimated. We're trying to build 4,000 or 5,000 capacity in the coming year. But if you send them in without dealing with Assad, he will barrel bomb them and kill them all. So we need a regional force. Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Egypt are your anchor tenants. They've got large armies. They need to say tomorrow, in my view, we're going in on the ground in Syria. We're going to clear the region of ISIL. We're going to go in the name of Islam to take back our religion, and we're going to hold this territory and give the Syrian people a new chance on life.
And you think that the U.S. should have troops on the ground as well? You've said as much, but I guess my question is the former acting director of the CIA, Mike Morrell, today on CBS said that that force to destroy ISIS will have to be up to 100,000 people. How many U.S. troops should be in that 100,000?
The general tells me that I talked to about 10,000. That most of the capability will come from within the region. But when it comes to special forces, we're the best in the world. Intelligence gathering, logistics, that type of capability that's missing in Arab armies. How do you maneuver in the field? How do you communicate? How do you get the troops to the places they need to go? Some helicopter capacity. But it will be a fraction of the force needed. But if you don't go in on the ground, you'll never defeat ISIL. And if you go in on the ground, you have to deal with Assad. This is where President Obama's made a huge mistake. His unwillingness to take Assad on and to tell him without any equivocation, you cannot stay in Syria, you have to go. The day that he leaves the playing field, all things become possible in Syria. ISIL is becoming an outlier by the day. This burning of this pilot alive, I think, is a tipping point. But you need American leadership to rally the region. And here's my comment to the American people. I wish there was no need to send anybody back into Iraq and Syria. But ISIL wants to strike us too. The threat to our homeland that's presented from ISIL's presence in Syria and Iraq grows by the day. So it is in our national security interest, not just the region's interest, to degrade and destroy. The president's got the right goal, but the policy and strategy is failing, and we're running out of time.
Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, thank you so much for being with us.